All right, here's the story from comicbookmovie.com about the potential Blade plot leak that reveals scrapped plans for 1920 set movie, The Daywalker's Daughter and Ma. Heard bits and pieces of this quite a bit, but thought I'd revisit it since poor Blade, they just couldn't figure out how to do a movie about a guy who fights vampires. If only there was something to refer to, like his comics, or, hey, I know, 3 movies that they already did about the same guy. And they didn't know what else to do. I don't know. Anyway, at the San Diego Comic Con in 2019, Marvel Studios President Feige welcomed. I always do this. I'm so sorry. Marshala? Let's just say Marshala Ali. Sorry, Mr. Ali. To the MCU by announcing a Blade reboot. 3 years later, the executive told fans in Hall H that the reboot would arrive in theaters on November 3rd, 2023. Then it moved to September 6, 2024, and eventually slipped down further down the calendar to February 14th, 2025. For a time, Blade was eyeing a November 7, 2025 release. We'd hoped the movie might meet that date, but it was soon removed from Marvel Studios' schedule altogether and taken back to the drawing board, having already gone through multiple creative teams. As a reminder, the past 6+ years have seen both Bassam Tariq and Jan Damaj attached to direct before creative differences became a problem. Stacey Osei Kufer, Bo DeMaio, Michael Starberry, Nick Pizzolatto, Michael Green, and Eric Pearson have also worked on different versions of the script. In recent months, we've heard conflicting reports about whether Blade could eventually be scrapped. It essentially was. Yeah. Not much has ever been officially revealed, but we do know that a 1920s setting was considered. In fact, the idea got far along enough for Ryan Coogler's Sinners to purchase and repurpose many of the costumes that had been made. Now, a supposed full breakdown of the original Blade script has surfaced on Reddit. There are no telltale signs of AI usage, as much as this does line up with what we've heard about Marvel Studios' early plans for the movie. That includes a huge role for Blade's daughter. He's just going to be... she would take over, he would be the end. And plans for Lantern star Aaron Pierre to play the villainous Aaron Thorne before Marvel Studios pivoted to Mia Goth's Lizard. Mia Goth's Lilith. There's also no mention of the Ebony Blade, which in later drafts became the reboot's MacGuffin, explaining Eternal's open-ended post-credit scene. Yeah, that was supposed to tie into Blade, but then nobody saw Eternals, so hey, never mind. The period setting is undeniably unique, but Marvel Studios has had mixed fortunes with telling stories in this way. In hindsight, for example, placing Captain Marvel in the 1990s has done Carol Danvers few. That wasn't the problem for that movie. Come on. The Captain America First Avenger was a period piece, and it was a hit. So, sorry, no, that's BS. So anyway, here we go. Read the script for more Blades, for Marvel's Blade movie. The first version, anyway, set in the 1920s. It's not bad, but it's very different from the Wesley Snipes movies and an average MCU movie. So I can see why Marvel got cold feet about it. It plays out almost like a supernatural fairy tale told from the perspective of Blade's daughter, Zora? Okay. It begins with Zora witnessing her mother being killed by a pack of vampires led by main villain Aaron Thorne. Aaron Pierre was supposed to play this role. A big part of the script is that vampire fathers pass their vampirism to their kids. Thorne is the son of one of the vampire elders who was recently killed by Blade. And the other elders have denied him his father's position since he's a half-black bastard. I mean, they're vampires. What would it? So he has gathered other outcast vampires, what, of color, I guess. I mean, vampires are shapeshifters too, so. To topple the elders, the big problem that he's half black would be that he still has his humanity intact and that he's descended from a vampiric father. His father would have been a full vampire who got turned by another vampire. So he's like the evil version of Blade. Yeah. So it would be like, yeah, the true vampires would, yeah, they wouldn't be all that welcoming of him because he isn't really one of them. But yeah, we got to make it, So anyway, he's gathered other outcast vampires to topple the elders. His plan is to sacrifice Zora and drink her blood so he and his followers can become daywalkers like Blade. Well, wait a minute. So he's not like, so then he's a full-on vampire. So it is, oh man, they're not even going to do that. They're just, no, they don't want him around because he's black. Or half black, I guess. The father was white, vampire. Yeah, because he was, so they're a bunch of racist vampires. Yeah, I think Sinners really did steal the plot from this. Of Blade. Because, in the end, the real villains was the Klan in that movie. Anyway, Zora escapes and hides with his old voodoo lady her mother didn't want her to hang out with. Voodoo Granny calls for Blade. The vampires track Zora down and attack Voodoo Granny's house. Blade appears, kills one of the vampires, and Thorn escapes with the other three. Blade only shows up around page 15 of the script. Zora finds out Blade is her father. Voodoo Granny tells Blade that Zora is not safe in New Orleans. Blade takes Zora away, and Voodoo Granny gives her a silver locket before they leave. Blade drives Zora to the estate of Quincy Harker, a wealthy descendant of Jonathan Harker, whose family finances vampire hunters for generations. There, Blade and Zora meet two other hunters, Rachel Helsing and Taj Natal. She is a descendant of Van Helsing and bonds with Zora, while Taj is an Indian warrior who has taken a vow of silence after his family was killed by vampires. Boy, again, like the Native American tribe that showed up in Sinners, and so Blade needs Harker's help to figure out why Thorn is after Zora. Blade learns about the ritual, which Blade and Harker both doubt would work. This is when Zora finds out Blade is a half-vampire, and she is frightened. He explains how his mother was bitten while pregnant, and that a vampire hunter named Jamal Afari raised him. Delroy Lindo would have played this role. Jamal runs a black settlement, and Blade will take Zora there to hide. Blade and Zora take a train to Jamal's settlement. They bond during the trip, and Blade reassures Zora that vampire children only develop the thirst when they hit puberty, and only become true vampires when they first drink blood. Jamal trained Blade, but kicked him out when Blade lost control and killed Jamal's son. Good Lord. Well, you can understand why he kicked him out. The Voodoo Granny is Jamal's ex-wife who loved Blade like a son and followed him to New Orleans. So I guess she wasn't the mother of Jamal's son because, geez. Anyway, she created a potion to help Blade keep his thirst at bay. Blade fell in love with Zora's mother and got her pregnant. He left, unwilling to endanger her and Zora, but asked Voodoo Granny to watch over them. He then linked up with Harker and his network and began hunting vampires. Thorn and his men attacked the train, leading to a big action scene where they hunt Blade and Zora through the cars. Blade kills another of Thorn's followers and has a fight with Thorn before escaping with Zora as the train derails. They reach the settlement. Blade has a tense reunion with Jamal, but he agrees to shelter them. Zora learns Blade plans to leave her behind with Jamal and resume his crusade, and is sad. Jamal has a heart-to-heart with Blade, where he apologizes to Blade for being a bad father and chasing Blade away, and pleads Blade not to commit the same mistake with Zora. Thorn attacks the settlement with a bunch of vampires he created from the victims of the train crash. They destroy the settlement. While Thorn kills Jamal and abducts Zora, Blade is captured and tortured after Thorn leaves. Rachel and Taj arrive, kill the vampires, torturing Blade, and rescue him. They go back to Harker's house to figure out where Thorn could have taken Zora. There, Blade connects the dots and figures out Harker sold him out to Thorn. That's how Thorn located them on the train and later on the settlement. Harker rationalizes they can use Thorn to wipe out the elders and then kill Thorn and his followers. Zora's life is a necessary sacrifice since the ritual won't work. Blade, Rachel, and Taj cut ties with Harker and leave him behind to rescue Zora. Harker later kill himself out of shame. Kills himself. Anyway, Blade, Blade, Rachel, and Taj attack the temple, where Thorn is preparing to sacrifice Zora, take out Thorn's followers, and we get fights between Blade and Thorn. Rachel and Thorn's henchwoman and Taj and Thorn's henchman. Jeez. Taj is killed in the fight and dies in Rachel's arms, while Thorn gets the upper hand on Blade until Zora stabs Thorn with the silver locket, allowing Blade to catch his second wind and push Thorn towards the rising sun, where Thorn bursts into flames. The vampires had destroyed Blade's spare potion earlier, so he begins to succumb to the thirst and go feral. But Zora manages to get through and get him to control himself long enough for her to make some more potion. She learned it from Voodoo Granny. Rachel inherits Harker's fortune and keeps financing vampire hunters. Blade and Zora return to New Orleans and reunite with Voodoo Granny. Zora realizes she can't stay with Blade because it's dangerous, and they part ways, with Zora staying with Voodoo Granny and Blade watching over her from the shadows. We then get a montage of Zora growing old, using Granny's potions to keep her thirst at bay. She never becomes a full vampire, ages like a normal person, marries, has kids, and dies of old age in the 90s. Blade attends the funeral and has a brief interaction with his granddaughter, who doesn't know who he is. He says he's an old friend of the family, before walking back into the shadows. So it's the granddaughter who will take over Blade's part in the MCU, or would eventually. All in all, and it's an interesting take to, because Blade can live a long time. It could have been opportunities to establish other things of Marvel's history in there, but and maybe they would have, but some elements of this is not. It might have been okay, and it's about his daughter, and she's important, and they keep chasing that trope, so that might turn a bunch of people off because it's so tired at this point. But and obviously why, because it's a setup for ultimately, if not, and certainly wouldn't have been the daughter in this case, but the granddaughter. But nevertheless, it might have been okay, and could have started a new Blade trilogy, and that sort of thing. But well, it didn't happen that way. Other things. I guess they wouldn't have gotten Chris Evans back, but he could have shown up in World War II and dealt with Baron Blood. It was the Captain America villain, or, back when he was fighting World War II with the invaders, other superheroes of the time. Yeah, but MCU is like, who? What? So anyway, I don't know. It might have worked out. But there's a lot of elements here, especially with oh, we got black characters, so they can only do stories about race. They can't just be in a vampire movie, you know. So I don't think it was just sets and costumes that was taken for Sinners, which is a cool looking movie, and the first half is pretty damn cool, pretty good, and then it just falls apart. So maybe this would have too. I don't know, but well, there you go. There was another one, another treatment of it where it was much simpler and sounded much cheaper to make, and I'm kind of surprised they didn't just go for it. But it was basically some people are trapped in their apartment building and it's infested with vampires. Some vampire got in there and turned everybody, and Blade is locked in there with them and has to try to save these people. And maybe they still would have had it. One of them is his daughter or whatever, that type of thing. But then the very closed, set, if you will, and it's this vampire battle all the way through. And he might have could have done that. But after all these years, I don't know that they're going to. Maybe we should just do a Wesley Snipes Blade movie, because his appearance in Deadpool Wolverine was, it went over very well, brief as it was. Nothing against Mr. Ali, but they had him waiting for almost 7 years. I mean, that's, and you're going to say that, oh, well, Wesley's too old. It's like, you're going to age out Mashallah Ali, So that's just MCU incompetence and whatnot. But anyway, so more than likely, that probably was the plot for the movie that will now never be made. Except an essence of it was made for Sinners, I guess.